Does multitasking mean not being present? You know, it's great actually, because the point of spiritual philosophy is not just so that we have something we can memorize and share with others and have other people be really impressed by, you know, how many different words we know, or how many different terms we know, or how many different philosophers or commentators we can quote from, or how many different books we can quote from. But ultimately the point is, how can I actually take this in my life? How can this change me? This is the difference between a spiritual practice and an academic exercise. You know, even if you look at the Gyan Yoga stream of spirituality, so the stream focused on knowledge, wisdom, it's still knowledge and wisdom that goes in. Knowledge and wisdom that actually changes who you are. It's not knowledge for knowledge's sake. It's not knowledge for giving it back on an exam's sake, or knowledge for impressing others' sake. It's knowledge so that my life changes. It's the knowledge of, that's actually not a monster on a hanger. I mean, that's actually not a monster in my closet. That's a jacket on a hanger. Or the knowledge of, that's not a snake, it's a rope. You know, yes, it's a piece of information. The light got turned on. I learned, no monster, jacket on a hanger. But it was knowledge that transformed me. Suddenly I was no longer afraid of the dark. Suddenly I realized what it was. So I preface the question with that because, yeah, a lot of times we get questions that are really in the nitty-gritty of daily life. Like, we talk about being present. Well, how many of us multitask? I know I do. I mean, has anybody ever done more than one thing at a time? Right? Has anybody actually done only one thing at a time? You know, these days we always do more than one thing. And so these questions come up that may seem very, very mundane, very not the spiritual philosophy that one would think. And yet, this is actually the stuff that changes us. This is actually the stuff that helps us know how to live. So, being present and multitasking, well, being present actually has nothing to do with what you do. I'm going to repeat that because it's really important. Being present has nothing to do with what you do, and everything to do with how you do it and who is doing it. So I could be drinking this glass of water. I mean, take one action. Well, I could be talking to you and not really paying much attention as I'm drinking and it's spilling, right, down my mouth and on my clothes. I did that on purpose. Because that's one way of drinking, right? I'm not paying attention. I'm not there. I'm focused on talking to you, and so I'm kind of drinking, and yeah, it spilled down my shawl. That's one way of drinking. Another way of drinking, even while I'm talking to you, is mindfully. I can have my mind there. I can be aware of what I'm doing. I can feel the way the glass feels in my hands. I can feel the way the water feels in my mouth. I can be present with the water at the same time that I'm speaking to you. So it's not actually about what we're doing. You can be mindless while you do nothing. Really, doing nothing does not mean you're going to be mindful. Doing nothing does not mean you're going to be able to be present. You could sit on your couch, eyes open, eyes closed, whatever you prefer, and your mind still goes. The mind is in yesterday, the mind is in tomorrow, the mind is in my childhood, the mind is in my future, the mind is in what someone else is doing right now. The mind is all over the place. The mind is judging the couch I'm sitting on. All of it. I'm not present. I'm not even doing anything. I'm just sitting there. But I'm still not present. Or I could actually be doing lots of things. Talking to you, drinking water, walking. I mean, we could turn this into an exercise. There's not a lot of room in here, but we really could turn it into an exercise. How many things can you do? Can you pat your head, rub your stomach? How much can you do and stay present? And the truth is, there's actually no limit. And a very interesting thing happens. I'll share a personal experience of this. My yoga teacher, my asana teacher, actually he was a full yoga teacher, but he taught yoga through asanas in San Francisco, from whom I studied before I came to India, before I knew anything about spiritual India. Before I was a meditator, before I knew that yoga meant union, before I knew anything. And he's an Iyengar yoga teacher, and the top one in the world. And his classes are intense. Very, very intense. And he's talking in his class about your metacarpals and your metatarsals and the back of your hand, your femur and your elbow and your hand. And he's got you in every different part of your body simultaneously. You're focusing on your, outer inner knee and your outer inner, heel and whatever it is. And this is what he does for 90 minutes or 2 hours. And before I came to India, before I started meditating, I just knew this is yoga class. And then I came to India and I started seeing other yoga classes that were much more focused on the spiritual side, the being present side. And I thought, oh, okay, so I guess his was only focused on the body. Until something very interesting happened. He actually came here to International Yoga Festival several years ago, and I had an opportunity to take a class from him again. Having been in India for 12, 13, 14 years by that point, having done a lot of meditation, having done a lot of spiritual practice, and his class was exactly the same. Your heel, your ankle, your knee, your shoulder, your this. So many things that you think I cannot possibly hold this in my mind at the same time. And at the end of class, having fully concentrated on what he was telling me, fully concentrated, my knee, my elbow, my shoulder, not my inner divinity, not my chakras, not the things that you think if I were focused on them, then I would have a spiritual experience. And as class finished, and I realized, oh my God, my mind actually feels exactly the same after doing this for 90 minutes as it does after I meditate. And I went up to him and I said, okay, Manuso, something amazing has happened. You've pulled me. I mean, usually I try to stay present with my divinity, with my consciousness, with all of these things that feel very spiritual to me. I try to stay present with those regardless of what I'm doing. You pulled me out of that for 90 minutes. There was no room left in my brain to think about anything other than all the parts of my body that you had me working simultaneously. And yet, my brain feels exactly the same way that it does in the stillness, in the spaciousness, as it does after I've been meditating. And he gave me this smile and he said, I'm so glad that you finally realized it. And I share that particular story because his classes are really the epitome of multitasking. There is no way that in any part of the rest of my day, regardless of how many things may be going on simultaneously, how many phones may be ringing, how many projects, how much work, how many people, there is not as many things going on simultaneously as he has got you doing in your brain in that class. But here's what's interesting about it. And here's how he explained it later. He said, by actually sincerely bringing your attention to all of those things, by being present with all of those things, not by letting your brain say, oh my God, I can't do this and can't be present to this, by really doing it, you become so present in you that stillness comes. And so, yes, in multitasking, we absolutely can and should be present. Simply doing something or doing 10 things should have no impact on our ability to be present with them. What ends up happening is my mind is still going. It's my mind that pulls me out of presence. And so the more I do, the more I have to think about. But interestingly, if you're really honest with yourself, thinking about what you're doing is not that which pulls us out of presence. So pumping gas, driving a car, typing a letter, cooking dinner, adding up figures, doesn't matter what you may be doing, straightening your leg, extending your arm, whatever you're doing. If you're actually there with that, you're present and you're still, even if that's one of 5 different things. That which pulls us out of it is the brain that says, oh my God, I can't believe I have to do this. Oh my God, why am I always the one doing this? Why don't other people also pick up their workload? Or, oh my God, this is, a monkey could do this. Or the opposite, this is way too hard. Who in their right mind thought that I was up to this task? Or there's no point doing this. I'm not going to get any credit for it anyway because he always takes credit for the work that I do. And it doesn't matter how hard I work and how well I do it. At the end of the day, he's going to get the credit. That's the stuff that pulls us out of being present. Not the work. Not the tasks. So whether you're doing nothing, 1 thing, or 10 things, if you're present with it, meaning with you who's doing it, not just the body that's doing it, but who's the being that's flowing through the doingness, you experience that state of presence. So it's not about how much, how many. It's about who's doing it. Puja Swamiji shares very frequently. He says people think that leaving everything behind and going and meditating in a cave will bring you peace. He says no. Because your mind goes with you. And so even though the body has now gone to a cave and has sat down and there's no one around, the mind is still there. And the mind is still playing the same games, doing the same stuff that it does everywhere. And so instead of it being about, the guy in the next cubicle, it's about the guy in the next cave. Instead of it being about, the boss who's against you because of whatever, now it's about, God who's against you because look, it rained and now your cave is wet or, whatever. But the mind plays the same games. And so we're sitting in an office or in a school or wherever you work or study, the mind says, I'm stupid, I'm worthless, I can't do this, Well, sitting in a cave trying to meditate, the mind says, I'm worthless, I'm stupid, I still can't do this. Oh my God, I can't even meditate, can't even do spirituality. I'm a failure here too. It's all the mind. And this is why, you think about it, if you were a Siamese twin, if you literally had another being, a separate being, glued to you, 24/7. Wouldn't it make sense to make friends with it? Wouldn't it make sense to stop trying to outrun it? To stop trying to figure out how to lose it along the way? That if you could just, escape in the middle of the night and go to Tahiti, your Siamese twin wouldn't realize you'd gone. Well, they're glued to you. They're going to be on the plane to Tahiti with you. So you might as well just turn around and look at them and, all right, so here we are, glued together. Let's figure this out. And that's really what the mind is. It's with you. It's with you 24/7. There's nowhere you can go. There's nowhere you can run. There's nothing you can do that it's not there. And so there's no better time than now to turn around and look at it and say, all right, so here we are in this together. How can we do this? I need you to be still. I need you to stop kicking me in bed or I can't sleep. What if you rolled over that way? Could we do this peacefully? What about if I loved you? Right, all right, you can't roll over that. Well, what if instead I actually wrapped my arms around you? Well, there, look at that. It keeps you from kicking me. So the mind is the problem. And therefore the mind is the solution. And whatever you think you're going to do, wherever you think you're going to go, that you're going to outrun it, I promise you it doesn't work. This is what people have been trying to do with drugs, with alcohol, with sex, with relationships, with everything forever. And we always come back to the self. Back to meditation. Back to contemplation.